This is Back to Back.
Yo, what's up, Back-to-Backers? This is Willie Joy. Welcome to the show. This is Back to Back. This is my podcast. As usual, how you feeling? How we doing? I feel like I put a little too much spin on that yo at the start. A little too much sauce. I don't know. It felt weird. But let's calm it back down. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. My guest on the show this week is Wooli. Highly requested. I know a lot of people out there are going to be excited for this one. And you know what? You're right to be excited. This was one of my favorite episodes we've done in a while. He was awesome to talk to. We had a really good time. And Wooli's had a big year. You know, he's really making a name for himself in the dubstep scene. He just got off his first sold-out headline tour, and he's just been busy this year. You know, he dropped the Evolution EP, which was a collab EP he did with Excision. Also this year, he's put out songs with Seven Lions. He's remixed people like Zomboy, and you can really just tell all the brightest lights in the scene are starting to point at him. Everybody's starting to pay attention. So it was cool to catch up with him when I did. You know, it almost felt like kind of an end-of-year recap for somebody who's had a really big year. And I'll tell you all about it in just a minute. Back to Back is brought to you today by Serato. And if you've heard me talking about Serato before on the show, you already know Serato is just one of the most legendary software companies in the DJ game. And now they're starting to make a name for themselves in the producer community as well. They just released the brand new Serato Studio, and I've been having a lot of fun playing with this recently, man. Serato Studio is a brand new beat-making software. And you might be thinking, man, there's so many programs out there that can make beats. Do I really need another one? And look, what you need to take into account is that Serato has been making software for musicians for so long, and they've been able to use all of their expertise over the years to really simplify the path to creativity in Serato Studio. There's a real focus on ease of use, on efficiency, on quickness. So, you know, if you have an idea in your head and you just want to get it out fast before you forget it, before anything changes, Serato Studio might be the choice for you. And if you've ever seen Serato used for DJing, it'll look instantly familiar. The interface, the ease of use, it's all there, and it comes built in with tons of loops, effects. Sample packs are available from some of your favorite artists. And look, if you like what you're hearing right now, this is a deal only for listeners of this show. Go grab Serato Studio and enter code WillieJoy2, that's WillieJoy and then the number 2 at checkout to get 2 free months of Serato Studio. That's a crazy deal for a piece of production software. 2 free months to try it out, and all you have to do is go to www.serato.com/studio and enter code WillieJoy2 at checkout. That's www.serato.com/studio, promo code WillieJoy and the number 2. That's a good deal, man. So, for this conversation with Wooli, we had never met before. We did this in a hotel room before a show. And honestly, I think both of us kind of had the vibe of not knowing what to expect, but kind of being excited for it. I will say, I take a lot of pride in the finished product of these episodes, always having a certain level of quality. But this was one of the ones where I knew I wasn't even really going to have to do much editing. It was just a pleasure to do throughout. He's such a smart guy. He reminded me of some of my favorite people to talk to in the industry. And you can just tell he's one of those people who's always thinking a few steps ahead. And I think that's true of some of my favorite and some of the most successful artists out there I know, is that it's kind of hard to tell after a while where exactly is the line between the talent and the hard work. I think that's when artists are at their best, when everything's kind of blurring, everything's working towards the same purpose. I loved having him on the show. I hope we can do it again soon. Shout out to everybody who's been requesting this episode. Here it is for you. Enjoy it. And if you do enjoy it and you want to help support this show so that I can make more awesome episodes like this one for everybody out there, the best way you can help this show is just by helping me to spread the word. Word of mouth is absolutely the biggest way that this show grows. And I'm always talking about this idea of community. I know we have so many awesome people out there listening. I talk to you guys every single week. And one of my favorite ways to connect with people is when I get tagged in their posts. So tag me in your stories, put up a tweet letting people know you're tuning into the show. I'm at Willie Joy on all social media, and the show is at Back to Back Pod. Anytime I see somebody posting, I'm always going to be reposting, replying, just generally saying what's up. And it's a cool, free way for you to help support this show. So shout out to everybody posting. I see you. I appreciate you. And if you haven't done it yet, there's no time like the present. Don't forget, I'm available to you too. You can always reach out to me, backtobackpod@gmail.com is the email address. I'm here for any questions, comments, concerns, general life advice, whatever you're looking for. But for right now, let's get into the episode. This is me and Wooli back to back. Let's go. I feel like the last time I saw you was probably in DC, right, with Adventure Club.
Yeah,
when you were on that tour.
It was the Death or Glory tour. Death and Glory. I should know this. It's one of those, and or Glory.
Yeah, well, it's got to be or, right?
Yeah, Death or Glory.
If it was and, that would be like,
yeah,
we're gonna die, but it'll be cool.
But yeah, it was. I remember walking in from a great dinner, and
that's right.
We had all those like snacks and like pastries and chocolate.
Yeah, the super fancy.
Yes.
Yeah, I think I walked out of there.
It was Bill. He's a great guy who lives in the area, and he has a restaurant in DC called the Masseria, I believe.
Okay, yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah, it was a really nice dinner.
Now I remember those pastries, man. Those were so good. I think I scammed a couple of those off the bus before I left. And Leighton was really mad that you guys had gone without him.
Well, I mean, we tried to get him, but he's Leighton, so...
He's a mysterious guy.
He's
man.
a very mysterious man.
I mean, to be fair, both Christian and Leighton of Adventure Club, close friends of mine. I love them to death. But yeah, they're slippery, man.
Oh yeah, you'll never... Here's the thing. They kind of beat to their own drum, so I'm not envious of anyone who has to be their TM.
Yeah.
And they kind of just like, if they're playing at 12 o'clock... They're still on the bus at 11:59.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like, they don't... I never take it personally, but, they don't text very well.
No.
And, none of that.
No, they're off the grid.
Yeah. Which is kind of cool. Like, I like that they've gotten to the point in their career where they can just operate really however they want.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, they've been doing it forever. They know how the game works and what buttons to push and which not. So,
yeah.
But
and how to do it sustainably for them,
Yeah, absolutely.
Because everyone's a little different. Did you pick up anything touring with them, like habits or, health stuff? Because they're always working out.
The health thing was great. Because when I'm home, I like to think I'm a pretty healthy guy, and then when I'm on a tour or like on the road, it's just like it's really difficult to stay healthy, eating right on like a schedule or going to the gym. And we'd wake up every morning. We would go find the nearest like Planet Fitness or a YMCA, and all three of us would go to the gym and then get some food that was like healthy, and we would just kind of chill on the bus. It was probably out of all the like tours I've done, it was probably the most relaxed and like able to feel kind of like have like a normal living lifestyle.
Yeah, like you're just a regular human living like other humans do.
Yeah. It's like as close to being like if I was home alone.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really nice, man. And yeah, they're so... They inspired me too, because I'm the same as you. When I'm home, like I got my gym routine, my eating is pretty standard, it's pretty healthy. But yeah, when I go on tour, it's just hard, If you wake up, you're tired, you have 1 hour that you probably should go to the gym, but you probably won't.
Right.
It's good to have that motivating factor there.
Right. Well, like for instance, on this tour I'm on right now,
which is just your headline tour.
Right. Yeah, the Voyage tour. So I would say I'm a majority to blame for this, since I was technically the one to approve all the flights, even though I feel like I didn't, but management will say otherwise.
Yeah, of course.
But like the shows have been running late. So like till like 2 or 3 in the morning, I'm getting back to the hotel 3:30, and like lobby call is at 4:30 in the morning.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, I'm not sleeping tonight. I try to get like an hour on the plane, but you're at the airport and you're kind of hungry. So you're like limited to either like fast food, but I try to get like maybe just like a protein shake or like some kind of like trail mix or something that's not complete crap.
Right.
But then you're sleeping all day, you're waking up before the show, not really knowing where to go for dinner.
Yeah, it's tough. Well, I have this theory about 6 a.m., 5, 6 a.m. flights, because I'm also a frequent 5, 6 a.m. flyer. And for me, I mean, that's never fun. No one loves that.
It's terrible.
It's bad.
It's not sugarcoated. It's terrible.
But I will say, I will always take the 5 or 6 a.m. flight over the 8 or 9 a.m. flight. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, yeah. I sent a very nice text to my manager. I was like, okay, from now on, we have a new rule. Nothing before 9 a.m.
Yeah, there you go.
I feel like after 9 a.m., it's very doable. You can still wake up around, 7.
Right.
And make it to the airport, usually on time. And 7's okay. But when you're forced to where you're not even allowed to sleep, like...
Yeah, that's real rough.
It screws with your schedule completely.
Yeah, I got in a couple years ago when I was touring, one of the heavier years I ever had. I got into this thing where it was all 5 and 6 a.m. and I would literally get back to the hotel and lay down and I figured out this weird, like I could somehow just close my eyes for half an hour, and it wasn't really sleep, but it was enough to sort of get you through.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Like, you're just kind of like resting essentially. Yeah. But like, I know it's a dangerous, slippery slope when you do that, because sometimes you can nod off, and then if your alarm, you don't hear your alarm, then you're missing your flight.
Have you missed flights?
I have not. Couple people have on this tour. I'm not going to mention names, but it's...
Well, who else is on the tour, and then we'll let the listeners pick who they think.
Okay, so I would say the entire crew would be 4 people, including myself. There's JD, who is my tour manager. There's myself. There's Sam Trivecta, and then it rotates between Computa and Wares.
Okay.
So it's been like a really, really awesome tour. Great guys so far. But
good people, yeah.
We have all kind of had to suffer through the flights. It's almost over. We have some pretty good flights this week, but I would say the last couple of weeks it was pretty brutal.
Yeah. Well, and for you, right before we started recording, you told me you still live in Rochester. So right. That's a tough city to fly out of, flying as much as you do, I gotta think.
So that's another, like, it's a small airport.
So you're always going to have a connection. Always
connecting to Detroit, Chicago, Philly, or Charlotte. That's kind of where I'm always connecting through.
Yeah.
And then because I'm always connecting, and because it's a small airport, it's kind of, you're also kind of forced towards those 6 a.m. flights.
Right.
And
just to make sure you get there. Right.
Yeah. And also, I would say, like, if you're getting home, just like expect a lot of layovers. So like if I'm like coming home from anywhere on the West Coast, that's like a 11-hour travel day minimum.
What about Rochester keeps you there? Like, do you think you'll leave there eventually, or are you a homebody?
I am a very introverted homebody guy. I bought a house out there. It's very quiet. It's very removed from like DJ, let's talk about music, DJ land, LA, grinding.
That sounds great.
Yeah. Honestly, I look forward to just going home to my house every single time I'm on the road. Not that I'm like not enjoying playing music, but like there's something about waking up and I like walk down in my backyard. I don't know if you're familiar with Wegmans.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so in my backyard there's a trail that they built that goes right into a Wegmans.
Oh, nice.
So it's like a 30-second max walk. And I'm there twice a day. I don't really grocery shop for the week. I go there for lunch. I grab things for lunch and dinner.
Dude, that's so funny you say that. I do a very similar. I live about a block away from a Harris Teeter here, which is like the East Coast Ralph's, basically. And yeah, it's like it's so sad to say this, but it's like a social occasion, you know? Mm-hmm. It's like it's what gets you out of the house.
Yeah. And like when you're like, let's say for instance, like I write all my music. I have like a finished basement, and that's where I'm at at 95% of the day. So I'm either writing music down there or playing video games or talking to people on like voice apps or whatever. But I just, instead of like just being like locked in there, like I go for a walk, I'll go to Wegmans and like Rochester is very seasonal. So like, you know, right now, like it's very fall and everything's pumpkin and I'm very basic when it comes like that. But everything pumpkin I love.
Nice.
And like, you know, right down the street, there's like apple orchards where there's people making like fresh cider donuts and cider pressing. And it's just like, you don't get that a lot of places outside of like the Northeast.
I gotta say, you're selling it pretty good.
But then again, like,
sounds great.
I wouldn't say I have friends there, but as far as like the majority of my friends that I made before music, I kind of lost like touch with them a little bit just because I'm traveling so much. And
are they still in Rochester or they left?
I would say it's a mixture. A lot of people have left. A lot of people have stayed. But when your job is to go out and play music at a club or a festival, the last thing you want to do on your weekend off is go to a club and like listen to top 40 and like drunk college people.
Or anything, really. Yeah.
So like if someone wants to hang out like during the day or at night and just chill outside or like, you know, do something like that, I'm down for it. But if they want to go out and like still go drinking like I was younger, I'm just like, I'm completely past that.
Yeah, well, that gets tough, right? When you sort of move into a different phase of your life and then other people in your life just haven't moved at the same time.
Right.
You know?
Absolutely.
I experienced that growing up in Minnesota. And then for the first couple of years, I would try to go back, you know, over the summer just to see old friends. And yeah, it got to be a bummer after a while, just because it felt like I was sort of trying to reenact shit that had already happened. You know?
I don't know. It's the same thing. It's like things really haven't changed too much in a city like Rochester where like, seems like once electronic music was like really thriving there and I was really involved in it. And I was like the head admin on like the Rochester electronic communities, like Facebook, when like Facebook was popping and like we were throwing all these local shows and like we were the guys selling tickets for like the bigger shows that come through and like also providing direct support. And then like I started making music and then I started traveling because of it. And then clubs started, I guess like the scene and like the circle of kids that really like pushed electronic music all kind of like grew out of it.
Right.
Or if they didn't grow out of it, they phased more into like a techno, like their music taste, I guess, matured is like is what they would like to say.
Yeah, no, of course. I make that kind of joke all the time. Yeah.
So it's just, a lot of the clubs that like kind of were hosting these events were just, they couldn't afford to stay open anymore and they kind of closed. So now it's mostly just like drinking holes and top 40 clubs that cater to the colleges around there.
Is there any kind of youth music scene there anymore, either for electronic music or, you know, any other kind of sound? Like, what are the kids doing? Do you know?
I would say if you really wanted that kind of local electronic music community, it kind of shifted all towards Buffalo, which is about an hour west.
Oh, there you go.
Buffalo's always been killing it with their shows and their community, and it's always kind of been pretty strong. And Rochester kind of just goes through phases. I mean, everything's cyclical. It'll come back, I'm sure. But for right now, it's just if you want to go to any kind of music show, that all the tours are all going through Buffalo.
Yeah, that's interesting. I love that. It's fascinating to me, the local politics of, you know, two small towns, not small, but mid-sized towns that a lot of people will just never go to. And then the intense competition between them, it plays out on that local level. It's so fascinating.
Well, upstate New York is kind of interesting because I didn't really find this out until I started touring myself, that because of radius clauses where, like, you know, if you get booked in one place, you can't play in a certain circle around
number of miles away.
Right.
Yeah.
So if you play in Rochester, because how it's set up, you wouldn't be able to play in Buffalo or Syracuse. But if you play in Buffalo, you can play in Syracuse. So when tours route through there, why do one show when you could be doing two shows and in a stronger market like Buffalo?
Right.
So,
and then what about Albany? Is that further away?
Yeah, it's about 3.5 hours, 4 hours from Rochester.
Okay.
I would say like it's easy to picture Buffalo, Rochester, and Syracuse just in a straight line. So Buffalo, Rochester, Syracuse, and then Albany's down here.
Okay.
And if you go a little bit further, then you're in New York City. So New York City is about 6 hours from Rochester.
Got it. Check. So Rochester's then kind of the most remote one.
Right.
in a sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Everyone thinks, oh, like, I say I'm from New York. And they're like, oh, like, I'm like, where part? And like, upstate. They're like, so you're probably in New York City? And I'm like, no else I have to.
Yeah. No, that's like, that's longer than, San Francisco to LA.
Right. I'm actually closer to Toronto. Toronto's only like 2.5 hours from me.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Did you ever go up there as a kid?
Not a ton as a kid. There was a ferry that like Rochester really pushed for a while called the Fast Ferry that went directly from Rochester to Toronto. And I rode that as a kid just because it was like, they were like really pushing it as this lavish like experience to go on this fast ferry. And they spent a lot of money on this thing. Sure. It was a giant like cruise ship type thing.
Wow.
And it would get you to Toronto in about an hour.
Damn.
So it was nice, but the thing was everyone in Rochester loved it. And like, it was all about that was the only thing we talked about in the news was like the fast ferry, when it's coming, it's here, I look at the port. Right. And then you get into Toronto and it's like a FEMA trailer and like this tent, like welcome to Toronto. And you talk to people in Toronto, they're like, we never heard of the fast ferry. So like, it was a pretty one-sided thing. It didn't last I think it lasted for like 2 years maybe.
Well, yeah, because I mean, not to shit talk Rochester, but who in Toronto is
right?
Who's like, coming? Finally,
yeah, we can finally go to Rochester and get a garbage plate. That's all we have.
Oh, that's right. That is a Rochester thing, right?
Oh yeah,
the garbage plate.
That's all we got.
Yeah,
Swagels, hot dogs, garbage plates. We had Kodak. Don't have that anymore.
Nothing.
Yeah, not a lot.
How was growing up there? Was it a fun place to be as a kid?
Yeah, so I would classify Rochester as a great place to raise a family and like grow up as a kid because it's very quiet and it's in the suburbs especially. It's very safe. Like even right now, I don't really lock my doors that much, and it's very like my neighbors are all
nice.
Yeah, my neighbors are all just like either families, retired couples, like. There's no crime there.
Yeah.
In the city, that's a different story. But most like other cities, you're always going to find more crime there. But grew up in like one of the top rated public high schools, and like the school system is really, really, really good. So that's why a lot of people like move there to start a family if they have kids. But then once you get out of college, it's not the best if you're like a young kid who's like trying to,
Yeah, I can imagine it might feel a little limiting.
Right.
Yeah.
And luckily now I'm traveling so much where I'm kind of able to experience all the other cities and like almost like I do like live outside of Rochester, and then I get to come back.
Right.
And then like I get to like relax and like disconnect, and it keeps me I feel like it keeps me extremely grounded.
And especially too, if you said you're, what'd you say, a loner, or like you stick to yourself a little more, just introverted in general, that seems kind of like the perfect arrangement, Yeah,
and like I really don't have, there was like maybe one or two guys that I could talk about like music production within like Rochester and Buffalo. It was not a very big thing where there's like, we could like go, in LA, you can go down the street and collab with someone, or you book studio time.
Yeah.
That's not a thing in like when you're kind of in a city like that. So it had its advantages and disadvantages. I think one was I didn't have that sense of competition where like someone else was doing something and I kind of like got jealous or something like that.
Yeah.
But
well, and that can be a good or a bad thing, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
Did it affect the way you felt about working with other people? Like if you were never around other people making a lot of music or working with them, person to person, once you started, getting really into the national scene, touring and meeting, bigger artists, working artists, was it sort of strange to have to change your mentality of, I do everything myself, and if I talk to somebody, it's online? Was that kind of an odd shift?
I mean, that's kind of interesting to say that, because I feel like my biggest, when I'm doing like a collab with someone, which is a lot, because I like to do collabs a lot. I noticed that sometimes I have to like stop myself and like realize that it is a collab, and like I'll go too far with it, and like either just finish it like or go too far where like they're like, wait, I didn't do anything yet or something like that. So like that's just kind of always been like, because I guess I was always alone doing it for the most part. I would say that has a lot to contribute to that.
Are you a fast producer too?
Yeah, I would say so. But it also depends on like the song and the style I'm making. Like if I'm making dubstep, I can do it in a day. But if I'm making a melodic song, I kind of like to spend a little bit more time on it.
Sure. That's an interesting thing too. When I knew I was coming to talk to you, I mean, you talk publicly online that, you have sort of these two sides to the Wooli project, the heavier dubstep side and the more melodic side. Do you think of it, because you just said, I make dubstep and then I make melodic stuff. Is it two separate things in your mind when you're writing?
Yeah, here's how I kind of go about it. So I have a couple project files that I start with as templates. And if I know I want to make something melodic, I gear with one template. If I want to make something dubstep, my master chains are different. The way I process things are differently. It does feel like almost like a different project, but that was only because when I first started making music, my first couple songs, I wanted to always make dubstep because that's what I was listening to when I was just a rave kid and going to shows and DJing locally before I was making music. But the sound design was always just something that just wasn't quite there yet. Something you got to practice. It takes time. Not to say future bass is easy to make, but that's the first couple of songs I started making because it was a little bit easier for me to grasp and learn faster.
Sure, yeah. It's a little less obtuse, I think, with heavy sound design. So much of that is really math behind the scenes. Whereas with, something like future bass or more melodic, a lot of us are sat in front of a piano as a kid. It's sort of familiar to just think, okay, I play a chord here.
Right.
Yeah.
So I started doing that. And that was what I was stronger at, but I was still, picking away at sound design. And then finally, when I got more comfortable with sound design, I started being able to release and be comfortable with dubstep. And I always wanted to combine them. So I would say recently, the last year and a half, I started doing songs that would have a melodic drop and a heavy drop combined. So it feels more like a complete song to me. Yeah. More than just this is a dubstep song with no words and some sample you get from YouTube.
Right.
And then there's an emotional, you get a vocalist and there's an emotional song and it's melodic and it's great. But how do you combine them?
Yeah. Well, it's weird, man. I feel like we're living in weird times where you almost have to give a caveat or a disclaimer that I'm sorry, but there might be melody in this song.
Oh yeah,
and at a time, especially for what you do with dubstep, I mean, it's never been bigger, right?
Right.
It's huge in 2019. But then, it's just funny to me because I hear a lot of artists talking about, either they give those disclaimers and say, hey guys, I'm going to do something a little different, or they privately say, oh, I feel like I can't, try this thing I've been thinking about, or that, my fans wouldn't accept it. It just seems odd to me in a time when electronic music is doing so well that at the same time people feel constrained by it,
Well, electronic music has always had its circles where people are, if they're really set on this is their favorite type or genre of electronic music, it's either that or the highway.
Yeah, for sure.
And there'll always be genre snobs and whatever. But luckily right now, especially for me, the whole melodic stuff, whatever, Millennium and Said the Sky and Seven Lions and all the, you want to call it melodic or sad boy, whatever.
Sure.
Anything like that. I mean, they're obviously crushing right now. Yeah. Millennium just did in Madison Square Garden, and
so
the Excision's doing Lost Land. So these are two giant genres that I think there's some crossover. A lot of people love to headbang, and then they love to say they also love to cry.
Sure, yeah.
So when I'm doing it and I'm putting them in the same song, I think that resonates with a lot of people. And some people like it, and then there's the the diehard rhythm guys who are or there's the diehard melodic guys who are oh, that dubstep drop ruined it. I've had some of my biggest songs were the collaboration with Seven Lions and Trivecta,
right?
And
which is super epic and melodic.
Right. It's very epic and melodic. And then all of a sudden there is a heavy drop.
Right.
And so the purists on Reddit, Monster Cat Reddit or something, they're someone make a version that's without the dubstep drop, or Wooli ruined Seven Lions song. And then, but when you play it live, man, the crowd just always erupts at the dubstep part. And That's also a lot of people's other favorite part of the song. So it's fair. It can go either way.
Yeah. I mean, purist to me, it's just one of those things that if I can satisfy any listener, I'm happy if I make something they like. But with the purists, it never bothered me too much if, something I made or something a friend of mine made was hated on by the serious purists. Because that to me is, it's like someone saying like, oh, hey, you can't come into this cul-de-sac. It's like, well, okay, I'll just drive on any of the other roads in the world and just not visit your 5 houses.
Right.
Like it's just a dead end to me of, if this is really the only thing you want, there's no reason to sort of compromise artistically just to satisfy this small population. And to be fair, I'm not talking about the Monster Cat Reddit, so shout out to them.
Right, yeah. I mean, we could think we have it bad, but just wait till you get in the techno scene and then it gets really bad.
Oh yeah, that's nasty.
It can get real like who can be the darkest warehouse techno guy. Which
is so funny for techno. I give techno so much shit on here, but for being like the highest minded, galaxy brain of EDM,
They are the biggest big brain genre. They are the most mature, sophisticated group of people.
It bums me out because I really like techno music.
Yeah.
Like I love that's one of my favorite things to go see somebody play.
Right.
Like that. What we were saying earlier. The only way you could maybe drag me to a club is if it was like some crazy house or techno thing that I didn't know much about.
Well, to kind of circle back to Rochester, that is the scene that's always kind of been around, and it's always been the biggest. So when I wanted to start DJing, I saw my friends DJ and I wanted to learn how to do it. So I had my friends teach me, but it was
what age was that?
I would say it was probably 7 years ago. Yeah.
Okay.
And when you go to a club in Rochester, it was a very tech house techno scene. And that's all they wanted there because obviously if you're going to go to a nightclub on a Saturday night at midnight or 1, you're not listening to dubstep.
Yeah.
And if you're going to play the local guys would play tech house and techno and they would all do a giant group and go to Movement Festival and stuff like that. So that was the scene there. But I wanted to play. And even though dubstep and drum and bass were my loves, I kind of had to adapt if I wanted to play. So I started getting into tech house and techno and started playing there. And then it kind of became a little competition. People are getting bookings over you or getting, asked to play at the clubs more.
Local politics.
Right. Very, very, very much so local politics. So I was like, okay, so how do I rise above this? Because I wouldn't say I'll ever be the better DJ at some of these, finding some of these songs. I have no clue where they found some of these songs.
Right.
I would just go through mixes and just I like this one. But so I learned how to make music. I was like, okay, this will separate me from the pack.
Because a lot of other people there weren't producing.
Right. Yeah. There was literally nobody else producing.
Okay.
There were just all DJs, local DJs. And I was like, okay, so in my head, if I was producing my own music, that'd be forced to put me above these people. I had to get better billings and all this stuff. But I still wasn't able to play dubstep. So how I wanted to do that was get really good at making dubstep and then get booked by people outside of Rochester.
Yeah.
That was my whole, I just wanted to play, I just wanted to DJ more.
Yeah.
And then it turned into this thing where I got a little bit better and I fell in love with making bass music and all this other stuff.
Well, that's really good foresight, man, because I think I certainly, when I was living in Chicago, that was my local DJ phase. And it's so easy to get caught up in those local politics and sort of miss the forest for the trees,
Right.
And for years in Chicago, I was absolutely playing the local game and just trying to figure out, how can I, play at this one club that this other guy plays at, when, if I had spent those efforts doing what you were doing and looking at how can I get out of this city, I think it would have been more effective. So it's cool you were able to have that perspective kind of early on.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, local DJ politics is extremely cliquey and catty and everyone kind of they might be friends, but they kind of wish they didn't get that booking or that person deep down.
Oh yeah.
And it was really hard. So
do Do you think you learned anything from the tech house world, like having to DJ something that maybe wasn't your primary interest? Is there anything you took from that you ended up using in dubstep land?
I think so. My teacher, my friend who taught me, he made sure, he was a purist. He was a techno guy. He made sure that I learned how to DJ on CDJ 800s and like where there's no BPM.
Right.
And then he would even put a tape over the percentage. So I had to, and he's like, and
That's so techno.
and we were playing on CDs. So like, there was no thumb drives on 800.
Right.
And he wouldn't tell me like what the BPM of the song was, and he put in a couple CDs, and I had to literally just ride the pitch fader and beat match that way.
Yeah.
And it was like, I'm glad he did.
Right.
It's like an important tool that a lot of people maybe don't know, or, with sync
these days almost nobody. It's crazy.
Right.
Yeah.
Doing that. And then he was also very, got a mixing key. Like if you mix out a key, like sounds like nails on a chalkboard, which to me now it does.
Right.
So like, there's a lot of like DJ like do's and don'ts that he pretty much instilled in me that like I think helped me as a DJ now. And then coupled with like, I've always wanted to make music that I would have liked to have heard if I was in the crowd, because I was going to festivals and shows since like 2010. I was the kid who was like scraping every single penny together to go to
just as many
Miami, go to like Ultra, go to Izu since inception.
So you would like go to the destinations.
Oh yeah, I was going, like I had my rave fam that like I met from like New York City, and we would travel over. We would do the camping festivals. I was always the kid at the dubstep stage where they were always like trying to go see Eric Prydz or whatever.
Right.
I just had the best time going to all these festivals.
What was it about that, to take it back to sort of the introvert thing? Because I relate to that too, especially when I was younger, introverted, shy person. But there was something about going to those mass events where I connected with the music and somehow felt more connected to the people.
Yeah.
Whereas in most crowd situations, it would be the last place I would want to be.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess even though I would have considered myself introverted, going to those, like I wasn't making friends with strangers that much. If you're at a group, if you see a group of people who are all like kind of vibing to the same music that you're vibing to, and like, or like they're going crazy to they're listening to Skrillex for the first time, like myself, and we're just like, you make that connection, and it's back in the time also when like music blogs were a thing.
Yeah.
And you were like sharing links with music blogs with your friends, going like, check out this new song that dropped. That was the way you found music. Like Dancing Astronaut was like one of like the places like bookmarked on my like.
100%.
So I think that was like helping me be a little bit more social.
Yeah, I think it was like what you said about, seeing people vibing out to the same thing you were. That to me was almost reassuring. It's like, oh, other people get it. Like other people understand the way my brain works, Yeah,
it was almost like this little secret part of the world that I didn't know existed until I started going to festivals. Like going to college, everyone was always listening to at like frat parties or something. They're listening to like, old Biggie and Tupac, or like weird like hair metal stuff that like or like something like that.
Yeah.
And then they'd like ask me like, hey, I was the techno guy. They're like, they call it techno, but like, it was just any kind of EDM or whatever. They're like, will you like give me some like playlists for some techno music? Will you go play some techno music? Or like, we're going to throw like a rave party, and like whatever their idea of a rave party in 2010 at a frat house at college is.
Yeah.
But like when I found a couple of people that were actually like, really knew their shit about this music, and then they're like, hey, like we're going to this festival, like do you want to come with? And you go there and you're like, everyone is like that at this time, when like this kind of like, I wouldn't say it wasn't like, obviously it wasn't the birth of EDM around this like 2010 2011, but like there was definitely this large spike.
It was booming.
Yeah. And like it was the progressive, like the Cascades and all the, it wasn't quite big room yet, but it was like progressive house and like very melodic and
Dead Mouse.
Yeah, but it was amazing, and like everyone was all just like loving it.
Yeah, man, there's something about, I feel lucky that we sort of got to live through that era, because getting to live through the height of a movement, I feel like 20, 30, 40 years from now, somebody could make a documentary about that time. And, old ass us can say to, some young kid, I was there, I was at that thing. And before that, I don't think I've really had that in my life,
Right.
Like
and it was
being like a real part of an actual cultural movement.
Yeah, this was all the time when Avicii just started. Like he just put out Seek Bromance and Penguin, and we just couldn't get enough. And then obviously he put out Levels, and it exploded.
Yeah.
But we were finding these people who were just making these these anthems today that are still popular, but they were just coming out back then. And we were just I was just so addicted to the next show, the next festival, seeing these guys. And there's still a video of me on the 2011 Ultra live stream, just there's the crowd, and there's me. I'm fist pumping to Fetty Legrand.
Yes.
And I'm just having the best time of my life. And just yeah. I don't know.
That's amazing.
And I don't know if it's because the music keeps on shifting or because I became a musician, but there's just that magic and that spark that I just don't think I'll ever get again.
Yeah, this is something I think about all the time is, how do you maintain that sort of pure love and that excitement about something that is now your job?
Right.
Have you figured out a way? Are there times when either when you're writing music, playing music, or even just watching somebody that you can kind of recapture it? Or is it just it's a different thing now?
I think it kind of shifted over from excitement to inspiration, and you're just you're immediately inspired to figure out how someone made this song or why it's catching your ears so much, and how you can put your spin on it and do it and make it sound original yet still give you that kind of same feeling.
Yeah, I guess it's sort of going from a passive to an active state, right?
Right.
Starting to actually contribute. Yeah.
You're definitely a little bit more numb. Just some of the things that come out, and just because it is so saturated now.
That too.
Back then, and putting out a song was a big thing.
Yeah, oh yeah.
And it was kind of easier to kind of follow the scene because there was probably under 100 DJs that were all making music that were touring successfully, and now it's in the thousands.
Of course,
it's just impossible to keep up. And
it is. And yeah, I get very numb. I get so many promos every single week.
Right.
All this new music, I can barely listen to any of it, let alone digest it. You know?
And even a really good song today that might kind of go under the radar wouldn't have 6, 7, 8 years ago. It would have been mind blowing.
That's also true,
so,
right?
I kind of always wonder, obviously I still think it would do well, but if some of these guys that are putting out music back then put it out for the first time today, or vice versa, I'm always wondering what the reaction would be. So let's say Deadmau5 is a brand new artist this year.
I love this idea.
And he put out Strobe, and we're would that make waves, or would that get lost? Or
yeah, probably it would get lost. I think that would be my prediction.
That's scary.
Yeah.
Because these are iconic moments in electronic music.
Well, there's something about you have to be in the right time at the right place,
Uh-huh.
Because Strobe now, even if it was updated to sound like 2019 or whatever, it's a tougher market.
Right.
I don't know. It's oh, great, another guy wearing a mask,
Yeah.
Whereas back then, it was holy shit, he's wearing a mask?
Yeah. You didn't even think about the live aspect of it.
That too, yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah, it's tough, man. And that was another thing I was going to say is that everyone's good now. The level of talent out of the gates is so crazy.
And you could think, I feel like you can thank the internet to that. Everyone just kind of started slowly but surely sharing their secrets, sharing their tips. It's become a thing where it's almost like content for an artist if they are putting up YouTube tutorials every week on how they made this last bass. Back then, it was still kind of a secret. There was obviously YouTube tutorials and stuff like that, but your favorite artists definitely weren't, you weren't seeing Fetty Legrand doing a vlog or showing, sharing his screen, showing how he made a song.
It was much more private.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right, for technique and for life. I think that's another reason why maybe if you put out some of the hits back then, now it wouldn't get as much traction because there was so much more mystery and mystique to it back then, right?
And then everyone wants to be a DJ now, so now people are capitalizing and making their entire business on how to gear their products to DJs to make them more successful. So you have like the cymatics guys, and they're first they started with samples, and now they're doing like workshops or trying to like show people like the business side of music and stuff like that, which is it's all good. It's good knowledge,
right?
But it's just making it even more saturated, where all these guys are like, wait, I can do this?
Yeah.
Well, all I have to do is buy this course and I can be a DJ. I go to Icon and I'm going to be a DJ now?
This is the problem, right? Is that everything becomes commodified, and then everyone thinks that, oh, if I just followed this 5-step plan, then I can do it, right?
Yeah.
Whereas I think the mistake is that actually if you're following somebody else's set plan, you're always going to be a step behind, you know? And none of us really had I talk about this all the time. There wasn't really a roadmap, right? When we started, I didn't have a lot of examples of super successful, famous DJs doing the kind of things I wanted to do. And so I just kind of had to make it up, for better or for worse.
Yeah.
Is that how you started learning production? Was it online, YouTube, and all that?
I learned everything on YouTube.
Yeah.
I would come home from my job and I would go on YouTube and learn something and try to like apply it to a project. And I would spend probably 8 to 10 hours a day on YouTube.
Damn.
Like a day for probably like 6 months.
Plus a job?
Yeah. It was this really weird period of time where like I was working 9 to 5, going to bed at 3 or 4, waking up at 8 and doing that. And I was like, at first it was like, you know, I'm just having fun.
Yeah.
But I have a very compulsive personality, especially when it comes to anything like computers. I still am, but like I was very, very, very addicted to video games, computer games, World of Warcraft, Counter-Strike, all the things. Like,
yeah, you just kind of fall off the cliff with it.
Yeah, and like it's like you would literally have to do what my parents did when I was younger. It was steal the keyboard from me. So like it was like that compulsive.
Your parents actually did that?
Yeah, they would, when I went to school, they would steal the keyboard if I was on too long and like hide it somewhere, and I would just throw the biggest tantrum.
That's incredible.
But it kind of translates now, like making electronic music has a lot of parallels to playing video games.
Absolutely.
You're programming on a computer. You're putting together this kind of like this puzzle where until eventually you complete, you win the game, you hit render, like you're done.
Right.
And then let's say like it gets a good reception on the internet, you feel like even more gratification. Then you're feeling like, okay, I want to do like, how can I do better?
Yeah.
How do I get more likes, more plays? How do I do this? And it's just a giant competitive thing even within yourself.
Yeah, that's true. That's really true. That's interesting too, because earlier you said you didn't get so much of the external competition because you were sort of by yourself in Rochester, but it's interesting that you just had it in you.
Yeah.
You know? It seems like you just figured out a way to sort of channel that energy into something.
Right. And especially if you're making, let's say, like bass music, dubstep, where it's very either heavily or pretty much all sound design driven.
Yeah.
Learning how to use a synth like Serum or Massive is like, it's very much like playing a game. You got to figure out what works, what doesn't work, what makes this sound by turning this knob like this.
Yeah.
And like eventually you get really comfortable with it and you can kind of play it like an instrument, but it's very much like a learning experience, like learning how to play a game.
Yeah, 100%, man. Do you still play games as well, or have you totally transferred that energy to music now?
I go through these waves. So right now I am back playing some games because some of my other DJ friends have asked me to come play some games.
There you go.
And we're on a Discord and we're always there every day talking to each other.
Nice.
Very social.
To bring it back all the way back to Adventure Club, I'm still trying to, because they're super into chess. And I think even while we were there on that bus, we were all talking about
chess. We played
a
lot of chess on that tour.
Well, dude, I mean, I have a DJ chess group that we all play through this app.
Oh, really?
And yeah, there's a bunch of us, man. If you're into it, I'll send you the link.
You should definitely, because like Leighton and Christian are actually really good at chess.
I know. And I'm just calling them out. Leighton keeps telling me he's going to download and play. And of course, he never does because he's Leighton. But
But if you get him in a room with a chessboard, he'll play with you for sure.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Because we were like I was saying, it's hard to get him to the stage. Our kind of running joke of the tour, we would say quick game. So like, and then we just put quick in front of everything. Like, quick gym, quick game.
Right.
They're on at like 12 o'clock and like it's 11:45 and he comes up to me. He's like, hey, quick game of chess. And we sit down and we'll start a game. Obviously we can't finish it in that time, but like we'll start a game. And then John from Terra Vita, the TM, he was just like, you guys are out of your mind. Are you kidding me right now? Get to the stage. He's like, quick game.
God, I love that. Yeah. You need the speed timer for that game. Yeah. But pro level chess.
I could beat Leighton a couple times, but Christian I could not beat.
Really?
Which is weird because Leighton would beat Christian. It was like this weird triangle where like...
Well, so much of chess is mental. Maybe he's in Christian's head. He knows what he does too well.
They know each other so well. They will apply it to chess.
Yeah.
He's not risky enough to make this move.
Right.
He's not a risk taker in life.
Oh, man. But no, that's cool. It's good you're able to turn it into a social thing. And I think connecting with artists and DJs in a way that isn't connected to music. I think that's super healthy too.
Absolutely.
That's one of my favorite things, man. When I go to LA is just hit up all of my DJ friends there to do something totally unrelated to music.
Oh my God. Every time I'm with any of my friends that are music makers or whatever, and we're not, and we have time, my favorite thing is doing escape rooms.
Oh, nice.
And those are really fun to do. So if I'm over in Denver, my brother lives, we always do an escape room. And we did a couple on tours if we have days off. But like, it's just like a big puzzle and it's fun and it's interactive. And
that sounds great.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've never actually done an escape room.
Oh, you got to.
I want to.
It's like if they're good, like some rooms are obviously better than other and more developed, but like they're very like themed. So like the one in Denver I did recently, it was like a Mayan temple and there was a lot of puzzles you had to do inside but it was very interactive and on theme. And then if you got out within the hour, the whole room filled up with coins and like it was this guy who like made it was like an ex like a movie guy.
Oh, that's awesome.
All props and stuff. So it was really, really immersive.
I got to do it, man. A friend of mine from high school for several years, that was his job, was designing escape rooms.
Yeah.
And I never made it out. He lived in Portland, so I never made it out there. But yeah, it's fascinating, man.
Yeah, definitely if you can get like a group of like 3, 4, up to 8, but that's obviously hard to do sometimes.
Yeah.
Give it a try because they're addicting, honestly.
I believe it.
Yeah.
So if we take it back to before the DJ games and back to just regular gaming, what was the job you were doing while you were learning how to produce?
Same job I'm doing now, financial advising.
You still do it?
Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
and is that what you went to school for too?
I went to school to be a lawyer.
Okay.
And minored in accounting. So I always had a little bit of finance. To kind of like give more like backstory, my dad started a financial advising firm all through like when I was a kid, like from forever.
Yeah.
And then I came out of college and I still didn't quite know what I wanted to do, but I did have like that kind of like I could go work with my father as long as I took the proper, there's like Series 6 and Series 7, which you need to, those are the licenses you need. So studied to do those, worked in his office, started getting my own clients, and just been doing that. So that was my job and it still is. I'm still licensed to do it. Obviously not in the office, but this is a job that allows you to be able to do it remotely. There is staff there where like if there's an emergency, they can call you, stuff like that. But
so you still have like a stable of clients?
Yeah, there's a small book of clients that you still keep. And that's what's like, I think I found the 2 jobs that like allow you to do that. Like I don't have to be in the office. I don't have to be there 9 to 5, but it is very much so like what you put in is what you get, kind of just like music too. So it's like very much like all like, you're not getting referrals and you're not getting like commission, you're not making money there, but music is now obviously my main focus just because it took over. But for a while I was still kind of doing both and they were kind of making the same amount of money. And I wasn't quite sure what I was going to be doing. But after touring kind of picked up, it was just like, it became more clear.
Sure, of course. That's fascinating that you're still doing it though. Do you think that background Okay, well, here's a question for you. Are there common mistakes you see people in the music industry making financially that you can identify with your background? What are they?
I mean, outside of like money management and like, as soon as that first check from UTA comes in and they're spending it on something like stupid.
Of course.
Obviously there's going to be that, but like not having the proper insurance, not having like allocating some of your money to like funds and stuff like that to kind of like
investing properly.
Yeah, because I mean, when you're at a company like a more corporate job, they'll kind of put money in like a 401k for you or something like that. No one's going to do that for you when you're a DJ unless you like go out and like, talk with a financial advisor or someone that will be able to like help you like.
Yeah, that's very true.
Put aside money because this is a very independent like business being a producer.
Yeah.
Like no one's really telling you how to like, what to do with your money. And it's still very, very, very early in like this whole like industry where we don't know what's going to happen to these DJs when they stop getting shows or, like what, like we know like Tiesto, he's probably like been doing it one of the longest and like obviously he's still playing shows. So it's not really a good example, but Yeah,
there's not much of I was just talking to some friends about this. There's really, where do elderly DJs go?
Right. And like, what do they transition to? And like, let's say they can't figure out how to make like the next step into like figuring out what to do after they stop getting shows or people, they kind of phased out of like producing music. There is still like, we don't know what's next with electronic. We don't know where it's going. Like we all try to think like every single interviewer is like, so where do you see EDM going in the next 5 years? Like, I don't know. Like you always try to,
nobody knows.
Yeah. Like we always try to like adapt, but like nobody, and no one's a fortune teller. So like, what if kids just kind of get like, tired of EDM or tired of dubstep? Like I always make the comparison that dubstep is just like hair metal.
100%.
It's just like, it's doing the same thing, same trends. Where are these hair metal guys now? Are they playing at like dive bars, like trying to get like $250?
Some of them definitely are, yeah.
Or like, so like, I would just say, just like, be careful, have a backup plan. For me, I'll always be able to go back to finance. But some of these people, I mean, there's some DJs and producers who are starting at like 17, 18, not going to college, or like, they didn't really have like a job before that was like, like a more of like a career background, more of just like, paying the bills to get by until music picked up enough. Like, I'm not trying to scare people, but just be conscious of it.
It's realistic, man. You have to think about these kind of things, especially doing this kind of work because the bottom could fall out at any time.
Right.
I mean, we're not on salary here.
Absolutely.
Yeah. That's so interesting, man. That's amazing. Do you think you'll be able... Actually, I'm not even going to say that. Let's just set this scenario. So you just played Lost Lands last weekend, right?
Yeah.
That's, like the Super Bowl of dubstep,
correct,
more or less. And so that's a crazy time. How do you weave your financial work into a time period like that when everything, I assume you're just running around, everything's crazy?
How do I do both my jobs during like the festival?
Yeah. Basically, or any time when, the DJ side gets really hectic.
Right. Well, luckily with like the finance side of it, all my clients are pretty much people that are retired and they're just kind of, it's like money management. And like, if they're in an emergency, they need money, or like after you sell them, like if you sell someone like an insurance policy, let's say like that, like you're getting money every year as like just like trickles of money that come in, but like you're not really having to like service their account that much. So everything is like really pretty much hands off. Everything's just kind of running by itself.
Okay. So you kind of set up the initial strategy, like build the roadmap, and then you just sort of monitor it.
Yeah, it's pretty much a self-running machine at this point, which is nice. That's why like I'm saying like I can do both. Right. It's like I found the two jobs where you can do together.
Yeah. That's fascinating, man.
Yeah, I definitely like my father is definitely like still crushing it, and he's keeping the business alive. And like as long as he wants to keep until he retires and sells the company, I'll probably just keep on doing this. Yeah.
No, that's ideal, man. You cracked the code there.
Right. Yeah. And as long as I don't let my my licenses expire, I'll always have those.
Right.
So like if I want to like, let's say like I want to take a backseat to music, or I'm like, getting up there where I'm like, okay, maybe I'm too old to be playing rhythm. I can always go back and like start, prospecting clients again and see,
Sure.
But
when you want to talk about where do not elderly, but where do older DJs go? I mean, let's look at Lost Lands, right? Yeah. I mean, that's something that Excision built. Mm-hmm. Not that he was doing poorly to start with, but that can be, that's going to be an amazing avenue for him getting into the event side.
Oh, yeah.
And that's a whole nother aspect of his business that is, again, it's not music, but it's a lot of the same skill set, I think, goes into organizing and conceptualizing something like that.
He is one of the best, if not the best, businessmen in all of electronic music, dubstep, bass music.
Yeah,
he's got to figure it out.
I don't know if that's well known or not, but it is sort of crazy. And I don't even really know him very well, but just from the outside and from his reputation in the industry.
Yeah,
is
extremely busy.
Yeah.
I mean, the guy's got it so like... Have you been to Lost Lands before?
No, I was going to ask you, how was it?
It was amazing. It always is. But
the only quick side note, I have been to that location because I once went to the Gathering of the Juggalos there.
I am so jealous.
It was great.
I want to talk about that.
Yeah, we can.
But he's like, I always say I always kind of just bust his ball saying like he created Disney World for dubstep. And when you walk into the festival, like the front gates, you were forced to go through his merch and his like merch like mansion. It's not just, I would say it's a merch tent, but it's way bigger than that.
Right.
And like you cannot avoid it.
Yeah, that's
just
great.
like Disneyland.
That's
you get off the ride and boom, it's a like merch store.
Yeah. It's like, oh, you want to leave?
Yeah. And like, he's always, figured out how to bring the biggest, best, most expensive tour to like all your cities. His production's getting insane.
Yeah, no one is touching it.
Right. And you go to any single show and festival, and I will be willing to bet my entire career you're going to see one Excision shirt, hat, something.
Yep. It's a whole world he's built.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
And like I look up to him like that, and I'm trying to follow his path to an extent with certain things because I'm also very business oriented.
Yeah.
And we've talked, I mean, we're at the point now where like we talk outside of music and we talk about business, or we talk about things that has nothing to do with music at all.
Sure.
So it's a good friend, an ally to have to bounce ideas off that like.
Yeah. And you have made a bunch of music. You just did the joint EP.
Yep.
And how did you meet him in the first place?
I met him, I would say through my agent, Max Freeman over UTA / Was Circle. He's I would say the right hand man of Steve Gordon, Smash Gordon.
Yeah.
And that's Excision is with Smash Gordon and Max. So it was always like he was always like, hey, I got this new client, can't wait till you start making music with him. It was always kind of like a joke, a half joke. He would kind of like, say like, if Wooli's killing it. But I was like,
right.
on my first tour, like 2 or 3 years ago or something like that.
Yeah.
He's like, he was just trying to like push Wooli. And like, and then, we played a couple shows, and he had me on one of his shows in Milwaukee, I want to say, at the Eagle Ballroom, I think it was.
Mm-hmm.
And a couple shows, like, Max would put me on like very early or something like that.
Yeah.
And then you just kind of like get to talking a little bit. He's a very, very shy guy. I wouldn't say he's got close relationships with a lot of DJs. Definitely he's got his like handful of people. He's got this like shy, quiet kind of thing about him but I was able to somehow just crack the code, and we figured out how to be friends. And I think honestly that has a lot to do with finding things to talk about besides I'm a dubstep DJ too.
Yeah.
Play my music, please.
That's something I think people don't always understand is, if you come up and you see a DJ you like, the last thing they want to talk about is being a DJ and, talk about anything else.
Right. And that's kind of what happened. That's another reason why I've always wanted to not go near Los Angeles.
Right.
Yeah.
It's very smart.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've never actually, for as much time as I spend there, I've never lived in LA either. And
right.
It would be different.
And you always get that question either from like interviews or that kid who somehow is your friend on Facebook who messages you like, hey, do you have any like tips on how like I could be a bigger DJ or how I can collab with someone? I always say the same thing. I'm like, figure out how to relate to someone, be friends with someone, and don't even mention like the music for a while.
Yep.
Don't bring it up. And if it happens naturally, but don't ever force it, because no one ever wants to be like hit up by someone random, even if they are like somebody you don't have a connection with. Like all my collabs have pretty much come through just being friends with that people.
Same.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. And I'll say when you get that vibe that somebody is really hungry to do something with you or wants something from you, I mean, you can sniff it out almost immediately.
Hidden agenda.
Hidden agenda, yeah. Almost immediately it's obvious, no matter what it is. And even if it's a nice person, the wall goes up right away once I figure that out.
Because everyone is trying to climb this like ladder of billings, of popularity, and everyone's trying to figure out like, how do I get to this point? Who do I have to collab with and kind of almost use to get to this point?
Yeah.
So what some people think, obviously. So,
yeah, no, and I think everybody thinks that way at some point.
Oh yeah, you kind of have to.
Right. And that's the funny thing is all of us navigate that even to this day. I mean, obviously there's people doing better than us. There's people doing worse than us. But yeah, I think for me, part of, and this is related to what you were just talking about, part of it for me was when I realized that for so long, I just thought there was a ladder. There was one ladder and everyone was on it. And sometimes you had to climb over people and other people would climb over you. But once I sort of realized that, oh no, you can just step off the ladder and, go rock climbing. Or this metaphor is not really working, but, there's so many other ways that if you just take yourself out of the rat race that it feels like everybody is forced into,
but it's also when you can start paving your own lane.
Exactly, which is it's scary at first and risky to a certain extent. But then if you, at least personally, if I look at most of the artists I like and respect, that's what they've all done.
Right. And if they nail it, that's a ticket to get to the top faster, honestly. It's a risky move, but I mean, you look at Porter Robinson as a great example, I feel like, who was crushing electro house and even dubstep with his Spitfire EP. And then he's like, I'm going to go do Worlds. And we're just like, wait, what? What happened to Porter Robinson, who was in a white tank top going crazy at the festival?
Yeah.
And now he's completely changed his brand, his look, his social media presence, his music. Everything's different. And it was his most, Worlds is, I would say, more popular than his other stuff.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. So
it's iconic.
Yeah. So,
and then he went and did Virtual Self, which again was,
he just starts pivoting again,
and that's why he's Porter Robinson, you know.
Yeah.
And any artist, honestly, like I was thinking about this earlier today. It's not even electronic music. If you look at the great artists through history, they're changing all the time.
Yeah.
They're not worried about, how is this going to look to my old fans or how is this going to fit in? I mean, maybe internally they were. But I think about a guy like David Bowie, reinvented himself entirely. Music, look, sound, everything. Almost every time he came out, even till the day he died, basically. Like the album he made, I don't even remember what it's called, but his last album that he made sort of, I think he knew he was dying. Again, it's like I don't know if it's one of his best albums, but it's an incredible album that doesn't sound like anything he ever did.
Right.
I don't know. I was thinking about Bowie today.
No, I mean, yeah, you're always you're always going to find that in any kind of sector of music. There's always going to be that risk taker who's like a true artist that they just have enough confidence in themselves and they have the fan base that is, I guess, accepting enough where they're going to gravitate to just wherever they want to go, they're going to follow. Yeah.
Do you have goals or an idea in your head of other places you might want to take Wooli as a project?
Right now I've always kind of been doing like a pretty equal split of heavy and melodic music. And I think I'm at the point right now where I could successfully just pivot to just melodic side or do like special little events where like you tell them like this is gonna be a melodic set, and whether you give it a different name or not, like someone right now who was already crushing dubstep, Sudden Death doing the Void project, that kind of is like, I would say this year's like standout. This guy's doing something a little different.
Absolutely.
He's taking even if it's not like sonically like super different than his original project, the whole vibe, the world, the aesthetic of the Void project is
it's striking.
Yeah. And it's hard not to notice that. And honestly, like after that set at Bass Canyon, that's, it was the talk of the entire festival.
And even beyond that, I mean, I saw talk about that kind of all over.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm actually really excited. So we've been talking about Rochester, and I told you earlier, I think that I'm getting a room in Los Angeles just like for when it gets really snowy and miserable in Rochester. But that's going to be my roommate. So it's going to be interesting to see what I pick up on living with Danny.
Yeah.
If we do any like, we've always like kind of sat in, like I've been in the studio with him before, and like he definitely has this like weird avant-garde style of writing music that's very unconventional to anything I've ever seen.
You can tell.
And I was always just super like, he was like just like probably one of three people in bass music right now that I'm just like, it's hard not to be like interested in just like the process and like stuff like that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Good combo.
I would want to, if I had to write a song with him though, I would want to have him step out of his comfort zone a little bit as well, and make something that's melodic but still sudden deathy and voidy, that's like dark but weird.
I bet he'd be down for it, man.
Yeah, he's definitely made a couple of those like going in that direction before. I think it was called Junk World. It was a song that was like more melodic.
Yeah. He's a sweetheart too, man. I just had him on the show a few weeks ago. Yeah. Great.
He's a super interesting person. Like, you look at the guy and like, that's either someone who's an artist, a rock star, or an idiot. You can't figure out which one it is.
Yeah, that's perfect. Yeah. And I think, we're all complex beings. Like it could be all three just at different times.
Sometimes I think he's the smartest person, and sometimes like, how is that the same person that I just thought was the smartest person?
Yeah. That's a good artist right there.
Yeah.
Well, and to bring it back to Rochester and interesting figures, probably the most interesting, my favorite person who's in that "What Are You" vein is Jake, Kill the Noise.
Oh yeah.
And
that's a Rochester guy.
I know, man. Yeah. That's what I'm saying. Did you, I guess he's older than you, but did you have any connection with him in the Rochester days?
So we're close friends now, and I actually saw him spin a couple times in Rochester at a place called Dubland Underground. I was too young to get into the club, but I remember seeing him a couple times where I was able to get in.
Yeah.
He used to go by E1, E-W-U-N. And he moved out to LA, started doing Kill the Noise, started popping off with Ausla. Huge fan. I was just a huge fan of his and his sound and everything.
Yeah.
And helped sell tickets to his show in Rochester, his homecoming show. And then he took me on his tour, I would say 2 years ago. And we actually played at the same place I'm playing at tonight. So,
there you go.
But he is the most... Man, you can go down a rabbit hole with any kind of conversation, and he's the most critical thinker, and his tweets I always try to figure out, but you never really can.
No.
And
it's brilliant.
Like, my God, those conversations you have with him one-on-one are just amazing.
I've had some long ones, man.
Yeah, and
especially if he's had a couple beers. Oh, man.
He has this way of thinking, and I think it kind of translates into his music as well. It's just like, he's always just got this like, he can just like go deeper and deeper and like think further than anyone I've ever talked to. Yeah,
I completely agree, man. But then there's this humility to it too. Like it's like he's doing it, but he doesn't know he's doing it.
Yeah.
Which is fascinating to me too.
Oh yeah. His brain does not work the same as a lot of people. And I think we're all like super lucky to have someone like that in our scene.
Did you make any music with him ever?
We have not made a song yet. We send each other music as for feedback.
Right.
And he's been working on a lot of music lately, different projects and stuff that like he won't even, it's like he won't even show me some of the stuff. It's like, it's very much under wraps. I remember I was just asking him like, hey, like, you have any new stuff to send me like for Lost Lands? And he's like, oh man, like, you know, if there's anyone I would send this music to, it would be you, because I really was like, you know, I'm interested in your, like, what you have to think about it, but like, I'm just keeping it under wraps. And, but man, like, yeah, he was definitely a hometown hero before I was making music and stuff like that. And like, I just looked up to him so much. And then to become like talking with him, it's just been like, it was awesome. And he's even been saying that he's kind of been looking at places over, might be moving back to Rochester.
Oh, shit.
He's got his kid now.
Yeah.
And it's...
You just said it's a good place to raise a kid.
It's a great place. And his wife is also from Rochester, so they have family there.
Right.
Yeah, whenever I'm like in Electric Zoo, we played and we hung out there. And I know his brother pretty well. And we all just kind of like hung out before, and it was good.
That's awesome, man. That'd be great if there was a movement back home.
Right?
Yeah. Maybe that's the revival.
I really wish like
about.
the EDM scene or the DJ scene would just all decide to leave LA at the same time and go somewhere else.
That would be kind of nice.
Somewhere else, like even Denver. Denver's nice.
Yeah.
And there's seasons there, and it's not like, I don't know.
For a minute, it seemed like it would be Denver, especially for bass music.
Right.
Yeah. But
honestly, I always say this, and like people quote me on it all the time, but like everyone says that, like, you know, Denver is the bass capital of the United States, which is true, it is. But of the world, Montreal, crushing it.
I like this take.
So I always say Montreal is the bass capital of the world, but in the U.S. it's still Denver.
Yeah, that's interesting. I wouldn't have thought Montreal. I mean, I've played some amazing shows in Montreal, but do they have a big local scene there?
Crazy.
Yeah.
And
I mean, obviously,
I would say they are some of the most knowledgeable people in bass music. And there's just something about this, like, maybe it's like the French Canadian in them, but they are just so silly. I'm trying to think of like the word, but like they'll do things that I'm just like scratching my head at. Like, we're at a music festival and it was in Montreal, and they're like, you know how like mosh pits are big now?
Yeah.
Instead of mosh pitting, they're making a circle, but there's like 15 people in a circle on their stomachs, and they're all like going on the ground, going like this, like pounding, waiting for the drop, and then someone's doing like a backflip, or like they're all in a row, like ducks in a row, and they're all pretending to do like a rowboat. I'm just like,
that's so French. That's amazing.
Every single, you know, like dubstep right now, fake drops are like kind of big, so everyone's like, you know, but you know, like I could be making a song last week and just put like a little clip on my Instagram and then play it the following week, and they know it. They're screaming the pattern to the fake drop or the words to the pre-drop, and like these kids are just on another level. And like I just played my tour, went to Montreal. Pretty much every single show that's bass music in Montreal selling out. So mine sold out, and then I have this video of like me playing my new song with Excision where they are literally screaming the fake drop pattern louder than what you can hear on the actual song. It is so comical. They're just like screaming it, and they're so passionate.
Maybe that is the French thing, the French Canadian thing, man.
Yeah.
Because I think about, you know, back in the day, it was all the actual French guys, like the people from France, who took what was happening in American dance music and sort of made it cooler and did sort of have that, just a different attitude with it. You know, like all the Ed Banger guys. And there was just something about it that was so cool. And it was sort of, again, not goofy, but there was sort of a fun attitude towards it.
It kind of reminds me of like when drum and bass in like the UK, or like you see some of these like drum and bass festivals like over in Europe, where, you know, you hear like Time Warp or Mr. Happy, and these guys are screaming it, you know, and they know it, and they're just so passionate about it. It has a little bit of that vibe to it. Yeah,
I think that's true too. Yeah, they know a little bit of the history too. I think that's something that we Americans have never been that good at.
Right.
Yeah, there's a little deeper culture maybe.
Well, you look at some like I would say one of the, if you take away Lost Lands, like the biggest bass music event is still over Rampage over in Belgium.
Sure.
Yeah. And like you just look at the sea of people and you're just like, oh my God.
That's insane.
Yeah.
Do you think, because I haven't been to either one, but the videos from Rampage, just overall, it seems like they might be a little more bananas over there. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that comes into just like Americans. They're loving dubstep right now, and like mosh pit culture is very big right now, and headbanging. But outside of that, like, they don't really know what else to do with their hands.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, I do want a new dance.
Yeah.
That's something. I'll throw that
I want the old
there.
dance back where I was kind of like skanking with like your like, you know.
Yeah, that was cool.
Yeah, that was the thing where just like one like arm up and just kind of like up and down. Like,
yeah.
That was
doesn't have to be complicated.
Right. That was the old dubstep dance. And now it's like who can headbang the hardest, which I'm just happy if they could headbang in unison with a kick in the snare. Sometimes you get that guy who's just like completely off. You're like, you got to know that like this is something's not right.
That's the worst. It's the same way that, you know, people go see like a singer and everyone starts clapping along with the guitar. And it's just like, why? Guys, come on. This is going to end badly every time.
Yeah.
No one wants this.
Right. And it wasn't until actually me and a couple are, I would say Sullivan King and even a couple other guys who are, I guess, like on the metal side.
Yeah.
I'm not metal, but you see in these festivals, these metal festivals where circle pits are huge.
Yep.
And there's, it's a mosh pit, but there's the outer ring that's just spinning and people are just like
running.
Yeah, running. I was like, why is that not a thing in dubstep? And I'm just like, I can't figure it out. And then for the first time ever, I saw it at Los Angeles this year. I was like,
wow. It's evolving.
Yes. And I'm wondering like, okay, like, is this like, we really are just like transitioning into like the metal of electronic music. Basically, even harder than it is.
I mean, maybe that's to take your metaphor. It's gone from hair metal to just, straight up metal now.
Yeah. And like, I don't know. You see these old, I remember looking at these videos on YouTube from like Glastonbury or like seas of people and listening to like Pendulum and stuff like that. And like, that's just something like we don't really have, but I always wanted.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
Well, Pendulum, again, they're one of those great groups where and I think you do this in a lot of your music too. It's what we've been talking about. I mean, they make songs, It's they've sort of transcended beyond this dance music project, this club project that's putting out, club bangers to, they're just to the point where they're able to play at Glastonbury next to whatever, Oasis or, whoever it is.
And I think it's all about trying to find that magic that makes a song listenable 10 years later.
Yeah.
And still be able to like just being memorable.
That's the goal, man. And that's such a hard thing to put your finger on what that is, right?
So there was this moment when I first started making music, and there was this guy who was, I'm not going to name his name, but he was a really, really big music producer. And I was always wondering, I was picking his brain one night, and he told me, he's like, if you're writing a song, like I sent him, I sent him some songs. He's like, they're great. These are great songs. They're solid, but they don't have the bass cannon effect or the I can't stop effect where like people are still playing these tunes to this day and like they go off or like people always remember these and like why is that? Like you look at the song and like the drops are great. Yeah. But, like it's all about like either having a good like pre-drop or like having something memorable like a melody or something like that just like sticks with the song and makes it timeless. So that's kind of what I've been trying to put into my songs as best as I can. And I kind of when someone asks me like for feedback, I kind of go back to what he was saying and I try to give the same advice.
That's great advice, especially to get early on.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cause like you can either make a song which is like more complete and something that has a chance of being timeless. You never really know. Or you can make like what kind of calls like a DJ tool.
Yep.
So like it might go off at the club, but in 3 months, no one's really remembering it. No one's really, it's on to the next one. Especially because how much electronic music is either saturated or the crowd or like the audience that listens, they kind of have like what I call like ADHD.
Yep.
It's like, okay, this song was good. What else you got? What's next?
Yeah.
I would say like if you put out a single, you have about 5 days of like, you can promo it. It's not weird if you like talk about it. People are tweeting about it or it's on socials. But man, after a week, or like 2 weeks starts, it's old news. And they're like, okay, what's next?
I know.
What other DJs putting this out? And
which is sort of depressing, but it's
very depressing.
True.
But like, it is, yeah. And like, that's why everyone's like, I've had conversations with my manager. I was like, he's like, do you want to do it? Like, I've had opportunities where I've had a body of work that could have been an album. And I had to shy away from doing an album because personally, I feel like that's a body of work that's not going to be appreciated like it would have been maybe 5-10 years ago.
Yeah.
Because the longevity right now is just not where it used to be. And I mean, it's still a passion project to do an album. Like, it's a great accomplishment if you're an artist and you put in like a single body of work, like an album out. Like, it's awesome.
Yeah, but it's almost, I feel like people do it these days just because they want to make that statement.
Right.
You know?
And they should.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And it depends on what part of your career you're in. But if you're just starting out, man, you could have 6 months of content if you just break it up and put them out as singles. Absolutely. And that's something right now that you almost are forced to do if you want to like break away from the pack a little bit.
Yeah, man. Keeping the stream consistent is so huge now. Yeah, it's bizarre, man. Because that's another difference between sort of the old era and the new, right?
And do you remember back when like someone put on an EP, they would drop all 4 songs at the same day, which was awesome and it's great.
Yep.
But now it's like 2 singles and then maybe like 4 songs come out on like a Friday after like 2 singles came out first.
Yeah, man. Well, even big artists, I think, are worried that, you know, people aren't going to pay attention to more than 1 song at a time.
Right.
And they're right about that.
Yeah, you need to like kind of give them their own space and you need to let them breathe. And you also need to stretch out your content so you have something to post on Instagram.
Absolutely.
It's really sad to say, but it's like it's like the like sad truth of our industry. And like if you're not posting consistently on socials or some kind of content or some kind of announcement, the announcement coming tomorrow.
Yeah, exactly. Announce the announcement.
Yeah, like it's just like, you know, someone else is going to be doing that and they're going to be kind of like
taking the air in the room. Where are you at with social media? How much do you engage?
I have become, okay, so I would say for Twitter is my bread and butter. I'm not much of a person that likes to take pictures or like post pictures.
Same.
So Twitter is, I always have dumb thoughts going through my head.
Yeah.
And like, I've always been like, when I was younger, I was like the quote unquote class clown. I'm very trolly. I don't take things incredibly serious. And like, so that definitely shows on Twitter, I would say. And like, you know, obviously I'm close with a lot more DJs now, so I can kind of like go back and forth and have like some funny, like
talk a little shit. Yeah.
So I really like that. And then it's kind of the like one last social media where it's kind of unfiltered. You're not like fighting against an algorithm. It's literally just like, here it is. This is what this person said, you know. And
that's true too.
Right.
I appreciate that.
Instagram's a little bit harder. I'm tired of seeing it, but there's nothing else you can do sometimes to like fight it.
Yeah.
But like the whole like crowd shot, family photo, here's a video of a guy I hired to come move the camera behind me while I'm DJing.
Yeah.
Shaking the camera all crazy. Like it does well. That's why people still do it.
Sure.
But like, we got to think of something different.
Yeah,
we got to come up with something like.
Absolutely.
I really don't do the family photo that much. I've taken a couple on this tour, but like, even like at some of the bigger shows where like Excision's tour, he'll bring like 10 other DJs and we'll be playing like the Bill Graham Center. And of course it's sold out because it's Excision and he's bringing all these DJs. But like, I'll get a photographer. It's like, okay, like we're going to do the family photo. I'm like, no. They're like, what do you mean no? I'm like, listen, like I didn't bring 40,000 people.
Yeah.
These aren't people just to see me. If this was Wooli and all these other people below me, it makes more sense.
Yeah.
But like,
that's a good point too, man, because I think you can, and I'm sure you've seen as many artists as I have do this, they'll create a false perception of where they're at.
This whole industry is giant smoke and mirrors.
Yeah,
and you find out more and more as like the deeper you go into the business side of it.
Yeah.
When someone says sold out on a flyer, when like you go play that show and like you realize that was actually like a free show.
Right.
What do you mean you sold it out? No, you didn't. You put it at capacity. You RSVP'd out.
Right, exactly.
But you can put that sold out on your Instagram and it's just like creates this like smoke and mirrors effect.
Yeah. And some people go too far down that road because, you know, promoters and agents and all of that look at you know, everyone's trying to figure out how real someone else's, you know, image is.
Oh, yeah.
And then, I mean, I've known, I'm not going to name any people, but, you know, some people who have a decently big name. And if you looked at their social media, it looks like they're doing really well, but then they'll get booked and they can't sell a ticket.
Right.
You know?
And that's the unfortunate truth of this industry is there's only one thing that really matters. And I thought it for the longest time was like, you know, if I get like 100,000, 200,000 plays on SoundCloud, like I'm popping. Yeah. I should get billed over this guy. But they're like, promoters care. How many tickets can you bring?
Right.
That's the bottom line. How many tickets is this guy worth?
It's money, man.
And it doesn't matter if you have a song that's got 500,000 plays and the guy above you has got one for 100,000. His brand might be better. Yep. And he might be selling more tickets and he might have been at that venue last year and sold this many tickets and you haven't even proven yourself there yet. So that's why that's like that.
Right.
But yeah, it's tough because like if you do these smoke and mirrors where you're just like posting essentially lies.
Yeah.
And there's no one there to fact check you or like call you out on it. It can go far enough where you can start getting better bookings and billings like that.
Yeah. And I mean, that's the other part of it too. Sometimes it can work. Sometimes you can actually lie your way into.
Right. And then there's the whole side of ghost producing where like, you know, you're making a song that just blows up and helps you launch your career and you had really no part in it.
Yeah, of course.
And that's tough to see, especially when you know, I've been a part of being a ghost producer before I was like really popping.
Right.
And like, I know how all of it works.
Yeah.
So at a certain point I had to stop. I was just like, you know what, I need to focus on my own career. And like, I'm sick of seeing someone else like benefit of my hard work.
Yeah. Was that a hard decision to make? Because I assume when you're starting off, I've done just a tiny bit of ghost production, but like when you're starting off, it's exciting because A, it's access to someone with a big name and connections and whatever. B, it's some money, which you might not have been making just as a new artist. And then it kind of turns into this conveyor belt kind of system where you're just in the machine and it's sort of comfortable to just keep doing it. Mm-hmm. Was it hard for you to get away from that?
I would only recommend someone being a ghost producer if they really need the money or they just really don't enjoy DJing.
Yeah.
It makes more sense just to be, you know, behind the computer, just pumping out tunes.
Yeah.
And you can't have a jealous side. You like if you see someone like, let's say like the biggest tune of the year was something that like you ghost produced, like that's going to always like lurk over your head.
Yeah.
You're like that, wait, that could have been me.
Yeah.
I could have been on this private jet now. Like it's just, that's something that you have to like just be okay with. And like for me, that's not.
Yeah. No, it's I'm
just not that personality.
Tough pill to swallow, man.
Right.
Yeah. And I know people in that situation too who they did make, you know, one of the biggest songs for somebody else. And you can tell it stays with them, man.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
We'll just kind of eat away at them, eat at their soul.
Did you have one of those? Just like a song you made that ended up being a big song?
Yes and no. Someone like, you write a couple songs and it kind of like noticeably helps their career.
Right.
It wasn't like a standout like banger song, but like, yeah.
Yeah. Fair enough.
I definitely just like why I didn't need to do it. So it was like, I thought of it first was kind of like a way to like into the scene where I'd get connections and then that person would help me out and stuff like that. But
sure.
like,
it oftentimes is not that.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because you're right. A lot of people start off that way, I think. If you've got some production chops.
Right.
It's exciting at first, but yeah, it's. I think you made the right choice.
Yeah. Yeah.
To wrap up, what are your goals right now? And that's meant to be a broad thing, either goals about your project or goals in your life. What's on your mind?
I think the obvious goal within music is just to keep on seeing how far you can get, how big you can get. I've always really wanted to create this world around my music that like some of my favorite artists were able to do, like, you know, the Excisions, the Snails, the Jaws, you know, they have this whole like world around them, not only with their brand but their music. It all ties together really nicely.
Yeah.
So I just want to keep on focusing on drilling that in. I want to get some really good vocal features. It's something that like you really don't have access to, unfortunately, until you get to a certain level.
Yeah.
So you keep on grinding away until it makes sense for you to get, you know, the Ellie Goulding, like
you're right.
Yeah, like you know, you're not going to get that unless you're like, you know, Chainsmokers level or, you know, Excision, Millennium, whatever.
Yeah, for sure.
So There's a lot of like vocalists I really would like to work with, and then I would like to kind of explore more of like a poppy side, or even writing some like score for like film. I've always really been interested in like stuff like Blade Runner and like stuff like that kind of vibe. I guess like the Hans Zimmer style. Like, always been really interested in that.
That could be great, man.
Yeah, and I think that kind of also helps like we were talking about earlier, like transitioning, like what happens when you're a 40-year-old rhythm DJ, you know, like what can you do? Like there are a lot of different avenues inside of music that I'm kind of doing now with like, placements or like writing for like video games and stuff like that. Like I'm starting to get connected with some of those people.
Nice. That's a little full circle moment.
Yeah. And like, I don't know, I think there's a lot like, more longevity when it comes to that stuff because, you can be 85 and write music.
Absolutely.
So like, it's a little bit more behind the scenes, obviously. You're not up on stage anymore, but like, that's something you could do. And if you're looking to, transition into something else.
And at a certain point, probably you'll be okay with not being on stage, right?
Right.
Eventually.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I keep wondering when that point is going to happen. But we'll see.
When the kids stop coming.
Well, that too.
Making you feel like the coolest person for an hour.
Yeah, it's kind of addictive.
It really is.
Oh, it's crazy, man.
Especially if you're not used to it.
Yeah, true, man. Well, and your success happened fairly quickly, right? Within a few years.
Yeah, I'm climbing up towards my 3-year anniversary right now of my first song.
That's great, man. Yeah, that's super fast, actually. Final question, just a memory from your life, anytime when in a moment music really meant something to you, really affected you. I
would say it would go back towards high school. I was in like a traveling like orchestra.
Okay.
That was like kind of like, the top kids from your couple grades were all like the select band or whatever.
What were you playing?
I was a percussionist.
Okay.
And I would play like obviously like the drums and everything. I was a drummer, but xylophone too. And I thought it was the coolest thing that we got to travel to Disneyland because of music. When you're like,
right,
9th or 10th grade, and you're like in Disneyland because and you're competing against other like school bands and stuff like that. Yeah, I always remember that kind of stuff just because like it's kind of what got me into like music, and like my parents kind of like pushing me into music, and you never know what would happen if I didn't do all this stuff or they didn't put me in like private drum lessons when I was a kid or something like that.
Sure, yeah. And that's an early echo of moments I think a lot of DJs hope for, is to be on stage at X festival. But that's really cool you had that early on, because I think especially for a young kid that plants the seed in your mind of, this is possible and music can take me places. Yeah, and like, I would say a majority of those kids, unless they went on to like, play in an orchestra in their city or something, they're really probably not doing a lot with like their instrument. Right. So xylophone scene not doing as well. Yeah, I know, right? The demand is just not there. But like, I would love to, I've been thinking about this recently, is just going to find my old teachers, my old conductors, and just like catching up with them and say like, like, I'm Facebook friends with my old trumpet teacher, and I really got to reach back out. Yeah. Man. And luckily, I'm still in the same city. Yeah, that's right. I'm still in the same, like I can just drive down 10 minutes and just like see like who's still there, That's pretty awesome, man. Yeah. Well, I hope you guys do get the Rochester revival going. That sounds pretty dope. Yeah. It's still kind of kicking in there, but like, like I said, Buffalo always kind of, just because of the way that the radiuses work. Yeah. Oh, Buffalo. I know. Foiled again. Well, this has been super fun, man. Thanks for taking the time. Thank you so much. All right, man. Peace. Later. All right, that's the show. Shout out to Wooli. Great to talk to you, man. I really enjoyed that. For everybody out there listening, I hope you had a good time too. Man, that was a good one. Don't forget to keep up with Wooli. There's a link in the description of this episode where you can go follow him, get all the tour dates, all the new music. Everything is at that link. And don't forget to check out all the amazing music he's put out this year. The EP with Excision, the Seven Lions collab, the Zomboy remix. There's so much, and you know it's all good. My name is Willie Joy. You can keep up with me too. backtobackpod@gmail.com is the email address, or you can hit me up at Willie Joy or at backtobackpod on all social media. That's it for this week. I hope you have a great rest of your week. I hope you have a great weekend. Take care of yourself. Take care of the people around you. Go out there, have some fun. Check off those goals. Finish out that list. And I'll talk to you next week. For Back to Back, this is Willie Joy. Peace.